Deathgasm is a 2015 released comedy horror directed by Jason Lei Howden.
It's set in New Zealand, and it's the story of a high school kid called Brody. As the film opens, his mother has been institutionalised at a psychiatric hospital, so he's had to go live with his uncle and his uncle's family. Brody is a metalhead, and his uncle is sort of hardcore Christian, loves the Bible, etc., etc. Yeah, they're not going to get on particularly well. So yeah, he starts at the local school where his cousin goes as well, and his cousin is a bit of a jock. I mean, yeah, it isn't very nice to Brody. So he meets some other kids there, kind of the local nerds. When he goes to a local record store, he meets another local metalhead by the name of Zach. Soon after, he's hanging around with Zach, and they break into a house, which Zach then reveals is possibly the hiding place of a sort of former rock star by the name of Ricky Daggers. They're looking around, and there he is, Ricky, asleep on a mattress, holding one of his records. So they try and steal it. They wind up with what looks like some music, and they've just started a band together. They decide to try and learn this song, which has got some Latin words on it, which they're not sure what means at first. When they play this song, known as the Black Hymn, it awakens some demons that then begin to take over the townsfolk, and it's up to the Brody and his mates to try and stop it.
My life.
Yes, indeed.
So this is the second week of our theme of... Well, it's kind of turning into sounds of metal, in a way, because this is very metal, this film. And I'd not seen it before. I think someone in our comments mentioned it. It was, I can tell you, it was Floyd 75 Dylan. I think it was him that mentioned it. If it wasn't, I'll cut that, but I'm sure it was you that mentioned it. And I'd not heard of it. Well, I think I had heard of it. And in fact, when I researched it, there's a picture which I had seen before, and that's the picture of the Brody in the corpse paint sitting on the park bench with the girl not in the corpse paint, which I thought, oh, that's interesting. What's going on there? Yeah, being a fan of New Zealand splatter gore films, the two famous ones being Bad Taste and Brain Dead, both by Peter Jackson, and also being a fan of heavy metal back in the day, I thought, well, this is kind of perfect for me, and it was perfect for me. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I had so much fun watching this film, and I kept while I was watching it, I was like, why was this not around when I was 15? This would have been perfect when I was 15, because weirdly, I mean, it's set now, or it's set in 2015, isn't it? Because it feels very 90s, this film.
I mean, there's no real technology in it. No one has a phone or anything, and that was sort of an intentional choice to kind of keep it analogue.
Right.
Because that's... Otherwise, everyone just phones each other all the time. There's a couple of instances where they leave notes for each other and things like that, which, if they'd had phones... the sort of plot that follows from these notes wouldn't work, because there'd be no sort of miscommunication or anything.
I mean, there's lots of nods in here too. I mean, obviously, so the director is a fan of this music, and I think he himself had kind of grown up, being the only metalhead in the town, in the very small town that you get in New Zealand. And I think he met a guy like Zach, who was another friend that moved to the town as well. So this is clearly based on him as a youngster, as a teenager. But there are also, there's kind of, I mean, for instance, there's a conversation in there where they talk about Barnes versus Fisher, and that's the two vocalists that from Cannibal Corpse, Chris Barnes leaving and then being replaced by Fisher. But that obviously happened in the mid-90s. I think it happened in about 1995. So it's kind of an odd thing to have a conversation about now. I mean, I suppose kids might do, but so that's why, to me, it felt like it could have been easily set in the 90s. It felt like a 90s film. Like you say, yes, I didn't even click that there was no mobile phones or anything.
No.
Which was nice, I suppose, because we kind of get sick to death of mobile phones. It's nice to see a movie where they're not kind of there, and it's interesting to do different things instead. But yeah, I loved it. For me, it was. I mean, it wasn't wholly original. It's been done before, a lot of these things, but what I really liked about it is, and again, similar as I spoke in kind of Sounds of Metal and Airheads, it understood, if you're a fan of, when I was younger, I listened to a lot of death metal, gore, grind, all the different genres they love to spout out in that hilarious scene on the bench that I mentioned earlier. If you listen to that music, then obviously the lyrics and the imagery was very gory. It was all kind of demons and gore and splatter and bleh, all that kind of stuff. And then of course I was obviously into the films as well. So I was into things like Brain Dead and Evil Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street and all those kind of great films growing up from the 80s and the 90s. But those films didn't really have the metal in them. It also it used to very much be kind of more rock based. So Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath and AC/DC and all that kind of music would be in those films. And sometimes you'd get like a rock kid, and he was always a bit stereotypical. Nothing really ever got it, and this film does get it. And what's really nice about it is he's not sending that up. He's not sending the metalhead up. I mean, he's sending the scene up, definitely, and there's definitely in-jokes in there, and there's definitely, it's good humour in there. But he gets those kids that are into that music, and he gets it perfectly. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. It took me back to my youth, I think, and I really enjoyed it for that. Like I said, it wasn't completely original, and it's kind of riffing on the kind of the Evil Dead story, the reading text from something ancient and then demons but then where else do you go with these films? But for me, it was funny. It was very funny. It had some really great visual gags. It had a heart. Like I said, that scene on the bench with the kid and the girl is hilarious. And and again, what's so funny about it is he lends us some CDs to look at, and they're real bands. I mean, there's like Cattle Decapitation and then Pungent Stench, where she kind of almost throws up in her mouth because of that revolting album cover, and it's a real album cover. It's revolting, but so it understands that world, and that's why I really enjoyed it.
Good.
Surprised you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I don't think I liked it as much as you did. But then back when you were listening to all that stuff, I was more a grunge kid. I was never really into that scene particularly.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of it, like the in-jokes and the bands they're talking about and the album covers, was lost on me because I wasn't familiar. Some of the band names were familiar, mainly because you listened to them, so I knew who they were. But no, I couldn't name any of their songs. If one came on the radio, which is unlikely, I wouldn't be able to tell you who it was.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that was lost on me a bit. Like you said, it's not particularly original. It did feel like I'd seen this before. The effects,
definitely.
There's lots of practical effects, and they certainly put a lot of effort into them, and they were really fun and gory and splattery. Although there was a bit of CGI added to some of it, which wasn't particularly good CGI, which kind of spoilt the effects, I felt.
I was going to say the same thing. I think there was... I'm not a fan of CGI gore or horror or effects in that kind of way.
If you've got the money to make it look convincing, then fine. You don't see the flaws or or anything. But obviously they didn't. This is a low budget film, so they didn't have the budget for the high end effects. So what is there doesn't look great some of the time, and it looks obviously CGI. So it kind of ruined. And it's blended in with practical effects. So it kind of lessens the impact of the practical effects, to be honest. I presume they were using it to hide stuff with the practical effects that maybe didn't work so well, or hide the wires or whatever, but unfortunately it just wasn't quite up to scratch. But it's low budget, so it's you have to give it some leeway. But if you can't do it practically, then maybe do something different. I don't know. But yeah, that kind of spoilt some of the effects for me a little bit. I really like the two leads. Milo Cawthorne was really, really fun, and James Blake, who was Zach, and Kimberly Crossman as well, who was Medina, sort of the love interest. She was quite good. Although, at first she was kind of sort of token girl. Obviously she's his cousin's girlfriend at first. He treats her like a possession, which is often the case in these kinds of films. So that was a little bit disappointing at first, although she does sort of come into her own towards the end of the film. There was one bit where Brody puts on his headphones at one point and starts listening to some metal. He it sort of transports him in his mind to this sort of mountain where there's sort of a half-naked girl hanging off his leg like Conan the Barbarian or something. So that was quite fun. And obviously, looks almost like an album cover. And then when after he's given her the CDs, as you mentioned earlier, she decides to pop one in her Discman while she's walking down the street. And as soon as she starts up, she then gets transported like a sort of an epiphany or something, where she gets transported to a similar mountain. But she's got sort of half-naked girls hanging off her as well. And I was like, why would she have girls hanging off? Is that her fantasy? I don't understand. It would have been funnier if they'd been like half-naked men, muscly, oiled up half-naked men. Not that that's what I want to see, but I thought that would have been a funnier joke. But anyway, that was just a little thing there that I thought, why is it got to be women? It's like...
Because it's metal.
Because it's metal. Yeah, men would have been funnier, but whatever. I liked it. I had a lot of fun with it, but it didn't. Ultimately, it didn't completely work for me because I felt like I'd seen some of it before, and I enjoyed it more before we got to sort of the demons and stuff. After it got to that, it kind of lost me a bit. I wasn't that interested. When we were just, it was them messing around with their band and sort of the relationship building between Brody and Medina was more interesting. I mean, one other thing, why. Obviously she's going out with his cousin. Why she suddenly is interested in him? I guess she's looking for something different. I don't know. It's never really explained. Obviously she's sort of the token hot girl at the school. Why she's suddenly interested in Brody, sort of this nerdy metal kid. I don't know. It doesn't... Because I thought at first that it's going to be, it's going to be some sort of setup by his cousin or something, and she's going to, gain his confidence and then break his heart or whatever. But obviously that didn't happen. Spoilers. But that's what I guess because you're conditioned to think that by all these other sort of teen films where the metalhead is like the butt of the joke a lot of the time. And like you said, that it makes a nice change for, the metal kid to be at the forefront and not the butt of the joke. He's the hero. I enjoyed the sort of first half of the film more, and there was sort of animation stuff going on as well, starting with the opening titles, which are really great. There's a scene where they're trying to pick the band names, and they're all, everyone has a go, and when they say the name, it sort of appears on the screen, sort of animated letters, and that, strange other thing, other little effects and things happen from time to time. But again, once the demons come along, that doesn't really happen anymore. It kind of gets forgotten about. So I think, the first half I really enjoyed it. It was the horror stuff that I wasn't really fussed about. As fun as the effects were, and as gory as it wasn't, I kind of felt like I'd seen it before. So it was the first half that interested me more, to be honest, and I found more entertaining.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, actually. I mean, I was fine with the gore and the splatter because I grew up and I watched a lot of that stuff. So for me, it was kind of nice to go, because I don't watch much of that stuff anymore. So for me, it was kind of nice to go back and kind of, watch that combined with an actual metal, like music and story and characters, which I didn't really get the first time around. So for me, it was taking me back to my youth, and I enjoyed it for that. But you're right, I think I preferred all the stuff because for me it was very funny, and I wasn't expecting it to be very funny, and it made me laugh out loud quite a few times, and there was some great, like I said before, and maybe that kind of went over your head a bit, there was quite a few in-jokes. There's a hilarious sequence where they as a band go out to the woods and they make a music video.
Oh yeah, I loved that bit. Yeah.
So that was literally, that's a send up of so there's a Norwegian black metal band called Immortal, and they had a music video called Call of the Winter Moon, which is kind of infamous for being absolutely ridiculous, and it's literally kind of grown men going around the woods. It's been sent up, if you look back on the internet, like back in the kind of mid 2000s, everyone kind of sent it up. It was kind of like the Rick Astley of black metal in a way, that everyone was, and in fact that Rick Astley joke kind of features in the movie as well. But so that video is kind of, loads of people, I think that's right, they put it to the Benny Hill theme tune on the internet once, and it's very funny, but it's literally, grown men in their corpse paint kind of doing this and lots of tongues and stuff. So they completely sent that up, which if you know that original, it's hilarious in this film, and they do it really well. And there's a really funny moment where this kind of geeky kid starts like playing with the sword, and he's like masturbating the sword, and they're both like, "What the hell are you doing?" And it's that for me hilarious. So yeah, you're right. All the stuff leading up to the zombies was really funny, because I think also, and this, I think my one flaw with it is, splatter and gore films. There are tons of them out there, but there were very few. I was always. I mean, I love Brain Dead and Bad Taste. I prefer Brain Dead, actually. But what's great about Brain Dead is it is revolting. I mean, it is literally revolting. There are scenes in Brain Dead that make me gag, specifically the ear round the table sequence. It's just revolting. There's nothing like that here. I mean, I agree. I think the CGI stuff, it didn't completely annoy me. I kind of went with it, and they had.
It's just noticeable. It is
noticeable. There's a couple of moments it's quite noticeable, which is odd because they do have some practical stuff in there, which is perfectly good. It's perfectly serviceable practical gore effects. but there's nothing in here that really kind of blew me away because, like you say, I'd seen it all before, and there's lots of it in Brain Dead, and in fact Brain Dead gets even bloodier at the end of it. And so it was kind of a shame that, you know, it didn't go to kind of the heights, and it didn't go kind of beyond Brain Dead, which was obviously made, you know, over 20 years ago. So I kind of agreed, yes, I really enjoyed the lead up, the characters, and them kind of getting together. And it would have maybe been interesting to just have had a comedy without them going down
without the demon
gore
stuff,
route. Without the demon stuff as well. So, but no, I mean, you know, apart from that, I really enjoyed it. I even found, because I don't really listen to this kind of music anymore, but I found a new band. There's a band in there called Beast Wars that were on the soundtrack. I'd never heard of them before. They're a New Zealand sludge metal band, and I was like well into that, because I don't really listen to the death metal stuff anymore. But that was like, got to hear that. So I checked them out on Spotify and really enjoyed that. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I think if you like things like Evil Dead, Shaun of the Dead, Brain Dead, or Dead Alive as it's known in America, those kind of films, then I think you'd probably dig this. And if you're a metalhead at heart, or you were a metalhead and you want to kind of go back to your youth, then I think this is definitely one that I would recommend checking out, definitely. And you picked it up?
Yeah, I've got this edition, which my local second-hand emporium has had on the shelf for quite some time. I've been tempted to buy it a couple of times, but I didn't know a great deal about the film. I kept meaning to sort of look up about it before picking it up, but it doesn't say anything about it on the back. The back's completely blank, and that's because it's like one of these loot box editions.
Right.
So I think it's Horror Block edition, which I think it was a Canadian thing. Quite how it's ended up in my town in a second-hand shop, I don't know, but there it is. So yeah, that's why it doesn't have anything on the back, because they decided not to put anything on the back. It doesn't even have anything on the spine, which is a big no-no on my book. but never mind. But yeah, you know, apart from that, obviously inside is just the normal disc. So
right, okay. Is it a booklet or anything?
Nope, nothing.
No,
no,
nothing.
No.
Okay.
So yeah, if you don't know what the film is, that's you're a bit stuffed, because you haven't got a clue. You can't read about it at all, which I think was why it sat on the shelf for so long. But yeah, it's got a commentary with the director. It's got a few little featurettes, nothing particularly long, but just a few behind the scenes bits. You see them sort of developing the practical effects. I think there's a few little interviews with some of the cast as well, and there's a music video as well. I forget the name of the band, because it's not one I would have heard of.
I think, is it Bullet Breath? I think
it was Bullet something. Yeah, I think that's
Bullet something. Yeah,
it's a female singer.
I think it's that one. I saw that there was a music video for that, and yeah,
the song is actually called Deathgasm, or at least they sing Deathgasm in the song anyway. Right. I say sing it, they scream it, because it's metal. You don't sing things in metal. Yeah, so it's got a few little bits and bobs on there. The UK disc it hasn't got anything on it apart from the film. So and in Germany there was a 3D edition as well, which is, I don't know what it is about Germany. They do seem to love their 3D, but they seem to release films in 3D that were never released in 3D in the cinema or anywhere else. So
bizarre. What
the 3D is like, I've no idea. It tends to be not that great when it's like just a disc version. It's I don't know. It might be amazing, but who knows? I
mean, there are definitely moments in the film that I can see working. Yeah, 3D,
probably. Yeah,
I suppose.
I mean, horror usually does, because there's always bits of flesh flying around the screen and blood splatting everywhere, so that tends to lend itself to 3D. But yeah, what it's like, I've no idea. If you are a metal fan and a horror fan, then I don't know. There's nothing not to like really about it.
You've probably already seen it.
Well, probably, yeah. It was basically made for you, so you've probably seen it already. Like I said, I didn't get a lot of the in-jokes that you did, so it didn't work quite as well for me. But no, it's certainly fun. I'll give it that. Not as good as sort of Bad Taste and Brain Dead and Evil Dead and things like that, but certainly a lot of fun. A little bit of trivia for any Power Rangers fans out there. Both Milo Cawthorne and Kimberly Crossman were Power Rangers at one point earlier in their careers.
Thanks, I wasn't, but thanks. I'm sure maybe there are people out there who like Power Rangers.
I mean, it was a bit after our time, really, wasn't it? It wasn't around when we were kids. But,
yeah, but even if I was a kid, I don't think I would have gone for it. I mean, I don't like superheroes, so it's probably not really my thing. I was much much more into Cannibal Corpse and Pungent Stench and
Anal
and that one too that they mentioned on the film. Very funny scene. And I also love the bit in the record shop that, you know, just to say there is that when he first meets Zach and they're both standing there and they're both like looking through the records and they're kind of getting out the cooler ones.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you know, that's cool, and then he like picks one up and he doesn't realise he's accidentally picked up a Poison vinyl. And he's just like, no, it's just, yeah. I mean, that kind of humour, it gets it, and that's what I liked about it. For me, it got them, and it didn't send them up. It understood what it was like, kind of, to be into that sound, and you know, to have not anyone else be into that sound as well. So yeah, definitely kind of a thumbs up for me, definitely, really. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit the subscribe button there and don't forget to push the bell for notifications. There's other videos to check out over here. Come and find us on social media and join us again next week for another video.